This is PhantomElectricGhost, and we are live on our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch channels with Umay,
Yes.
right? And formerly, you can tell the fans your old name.
Yes. I used to be Regina Faye.
Yeah, now you why did you decide to change your name? We never talked to you about that.
Yeah. So Umay is actually my actual first name. Regina
Wow.
Faye was more of a nickname that I really liked that I went with, but at some point I felt like going back to Umay it just felt right.
So that's a cool thing because that's kind of like John Mellencamp used to be like Johnny, I think Cougar or something. And he actually his real name is John Mellencamp, but everybody said, "Oh, that name is not going to work because that's it's a really long name." But he said, "Well, that's my real name," so I can get it. Like a lot of artists, is like, "Well, I want to really be who I am," so
Yeah.
that's cool. So what we wanted to do is like what we do all the time with this new version of the show is we like to show people and have people listen to your music. So you have a new song that's out, and we're queuing it up right now.
Yeah.
So this is like the cure for loneliness and the full like elegy to the rain version.
Yes.
But like you got the long song titles. Well, I like that. I'm a progressive guy, so I like listen to these long yes songs that would like be like 20 minutes long and have a really long name. So yeah, so we're gonna play this, and then we're gonna come back and talk to you about your new music and everything that you're doing right now. So let me cue this up and get this ready to go. And then we'll put you on mute, and then we'll come back and talk about it after.
Yep.
Street lamps warm the air with golden streaks of memories fair. Something is coming, I feel it in the cold night air. No light will be enough to cut us out this far. And if you find the cure in your war path, all I ask is you let me know that. Find a cure for loneliness, carry it through rows of gold. Look for a light in the mist, wrap it up in clothes of gold, and in all its holiness, find out what never was told. It's a story they told about a heart so rare. Something was lost, come look for it if you dare. Sing through the pain, elegy to the rain. And if you find the cure in your war path, all I ask is you let me know that. Find a cure for loneliness, carry it through roads of gold. Look for a light in the mist, wrap it up in clothes of gold, and in all its holiness, find out what never was told. Please hold me for a little while, darling. The earth's falling under my feet. Won't you stay with me, darling? can live in this heartbeat. And all the kings and all the wise men, searching far and wide, couldn't find a way out of their lives. So please just hold me true. We will be the cure. We'll make it through. Find a cure for loneliness. Carry it through roads of gold. Look for a light in the mist. Wrap it up in clothes of gold, and in all its holiness, find out what never was told. Find out what never was told.
So that was the cure for loneliness, and we're coming back. So let me get back to the main view, and we're back. I can hear you, right? You're there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that right. Good. That's always hard. So yeah, that's a pretty cool lyric video. I thought it was just going to be a lyric video from the description, but you actually had like a full concept.
Yeah.
And so how did you put that together? Is that all you, or did you work with somebody?
So that was all me, with some footage of myself and also some stock footage. I edited them together, and for some reason, I could have just done the words on the computer like a normal person, and that would have been very easy. But instead, I decided I was actually going to photograph all those words from books, which took me a very long time.
A little bit more than a lyric video. It's like a full video. To me, it's like, that's not a lyric video. That's a full concept video. Because you've got like footage, and the words aren't just like, you actually put I can see you put a lot of work into it. So
Yeah, thank you.
no, it's pretty cool, because like I see I mean, not that people, have lyric videos, but a lot of times it's just, it's just a photo, and then there's like scrolling lyrics, and it's like, okay, well, they didn't put a lot of effort. It's just so I can have something. And it looks like you actually did more than that, a lot more than that, which is cool. So is this a full, like a preview from a bigger piece of work?
Yes, so Cure for Loneliness, as well as the previous song, A Town Somewhere, they are both from the same EP that's coming out, and I'm going to be announcing the date for it this week, hopefully. And they're part of this EP called Those Were the Days. So it's all a bit of reminiscing, a bit of nostalgia, and looking at how we remember things, essentially.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I like the idea. You always have seemed to have worked with like kind of like in an old school kind of album oriented or larger than a single or playlist way, which I like. Because like I said, I to a lot of people, I'm a child of the 70s. I used to listen to like full records or 8 tracks when they didn't blow up. But yeah, I like being able to hear an artist's complete thought. And it usually is, you have to listen to an EP or a record to get the complete thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just I like to do that, and we just came off of the Peg Festival, where you had done like an unplugged performance, which was really cool, and I think all of our fans appreciated that. And so we'd love to do some new things that we're doing, is actually allowing people to perform, because we know there's like, you can't do a lot of venues nowadays. But maybe we'll ask you, like, do you have any like concerts scheduled for this new work, or are you still kind of in a situation where you can't play live?
At the moment, nothing, unfortunately. We're just waiting to see how the world moves on.
Wow, so then we have an opportunity.
Yeah.
because we're actually trying out something in between the festivals that we do. We're trying to set up like full solo concerts for artists, right? So if you want to do like a 30-minute, 45-minute set, and you want to actually even schedule tickets and do like a whole show, we're set it up so you can do it with or without tickets, and you can actually present just yourself. It's not like all the other bands we did. It's like just you. Um, so if that's something you want to do for your project, let us know. We could set that up to
Yeah,
fit your schedule.
absolutely.
Because we think people should hear the music not just on record but live, which is what all
Mhm.
musicians want to do. But because of COVID, we're not able to do that. But because of this platform, now we can. So since we can, so we said, well, we got to take advantage of that more.
Yeah.
So this idea, this project, you've been working on it for a while. So um, is this something that you feel like is really like with your name change? Maybe we talk about that. Because like before we talked to you as Regina Faye, and now you've actually got back to your real name. Um, so what made you feel that it was the right time to do that?
So I think it was actually while I was planning to re-release Cure for Loneliness as it is now that I started thinking about the name, because I did release an earlier version of Cure for Loneliness last year, which is why it's Elegy to the Rain version now. And I think looking through it and looking through my songs, it made me realize that actually, rather than just being the nickname or just being the character that I put on when I'm performing, these songs are just me. So it just felt right to go back to Umay.
I think that's really interesting because I think a lot of times in the record industry, whether we do it for ourselves or we kind of like, the big examples like, Robert Zimmerman, that's Bob Dylan, but he didn't feel he could come out as Robert Zimmerman. He said, well, I got to change that name. And
Yeah.
like, a lot of artists, they change their name. David Bowie David Jones. Well, David Jones is real common. Bowie's like not as common. So like, I think a lot of people, like kind of go back and forth in terms of their careers. Like, okay, what's going to work? Is this just not going to work because people aren't going to get it? Or even sometimes they want to separate themselves from their work and they
Yeah.
don't want their real name so they can have a little privacy when they're in real life. So if they can put their name somewhere and they show up somewhere, not everybody in the world is like chasing them down. But you know, so is it's kind of like I think it's people want to feel. I think you have to feel in yourself when you're ready to do that,
Yeah.
right? Because like not everybody's in the right spot to figure out like what they want to do.
Mm. Yeah, I think me going with Regina Faye was a bit of distancing myself, and also because I just thought my name was very hard to pronounce and weird. But I actually realized I quite like it, so why not use it?
Well, I think that's like a lot like people like if you're a singer songwriter, you've got your own style, right? That is
Yeah.
you. So then your name is you too. So it's kind of consistent. Like when you're a singer songwriter, and you're trying to be your authentic self, or you're putting out your spin because you don't want to sound like everybody else on the radio. Then if you've got a name that's like not common, well, that's kind of cool. Because then that's your brand. Like everything is
Yeah.
like a brand. Now you want, oh, I'm going to commercialize myself, but like it's just it sets you apart because it's not typical. So it's cool to have something that's not typical because then it draws attention. Now, some people can get like scared of that attention or hear, oh, I don't know if I should do that. But I think, I think once you are a singer songwriter and you start to put the ideas out, you're
Yeah.
already kind of going that way.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, now I'm ready to go like the full picture. But so how much time have you spent in the new in the like the revisioning of the project? How much work did it take to do that?
So I had an earlier version of this project that I was kind of debating releasing about last year, But then I decided not to, and I wanted to revise it and change it a bit. So that's why it's coming in a bit later than I thought it would. And now I think it's been like a few months of going back and forth over the old songs. I've been trying to change, I've been trying out new keys for some of the songs because I think they would just sound cooler that way. And yeah, that has been the work I'm doing now.
So is a lot of this stuff been like I guess you actually like they're totally, are they like different variations or variations that you maybe didn't pick and now you like more, or you went back and re-recorded a bunch of things? Because I know like when I do a song, sometimes I'll have like 5 versions,
Yeah.
or 10 versions, like one with the piano, one with guitar, one with synth, one without synth, one with like a real tribal kind of drums, and one with like more organic or less organic drums. It's like I just keep on, and then I can't. And then once I have so many versions, I'm like, oh, which one do I like? And then I start like putting them out on SoundCloud to see if anybody see what the fans like, and it's like, oh, 1,000 people like this one, so and 10 people like that one. Okay, then I'm gonna be crazy. I'll put the one that 10 people like. Because I'm like, I was like, oh, I like it, so I'll be doing that one anyway. But I don't know. It's like how do you kind of do you have people that help you figure out what you're going to use and what you're not going to use, or is it like all your decision?
It is mostly my decision, yeah. Sometimes my friends will hear earlier versions of them, but at the end of the day, if I didn't like something, I don't really care if someone else liked it. I will take that out.
Yeah, I've done that because I had a bunch of people. Hey, yeah, you shouldn't put that one out. I was like, oh, that's the one I'm gonna. Because because I'm gonna be real obstinate. It's like, why did you put that one out? Like, because you told me that was the one you didn't like. So like, that's the one. That's the. But yeah, I don't know. I think artists are kind of like you're kind of already have an answer. Like a lot of times, if you ask somebody which solo should you use, right? I already know which one I'm going to use, but I'm like, I just want to see what somebody says, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's nice. I'm gonna do what I was gonna do anyway. But yeah, I think it's interesting because I mean, like, yeah, as you get more like comfortable, I think with what you want to do as an artist, then you kind of like you. It's almost like, oh, I feel I should ask somebody, but you're really like, okay, well, I'm just trying to be nice.
Yeah.
And have people around me feel like they have input.
Like, I think that's what I did with the name change as well, because I was on TikTok and I was thinking about the name change. I made a few videos about it, and at the end of the day, I knew that I was going to change it, but I still wanted what people thought.
Yeah, I think like artists are like that. It's like, oh, like I'm gonna ask my fans what if I should play this song anymore, and they all say yeah, and then I say, okay, well, I'm not gonna play. Because my whole thing was I was hoping they were gonna say no, and they didn't. I was like, okay, I want to do what I was gonna do anyway. But I think it's really interesting today with the way we can communicate. Like you said, TikTok. I mean, TikTok was something I was kind of like I still don't really know how to use it right, because I see how it's used, and I just have not figured out how to get my brand into it and actually really use it. I mean, I end up using it like I use Instagram, and that's probably not the right thing to do. Because it's like there's a certain, like, every one of these things has like its own like the ecosystem. Like, so in TikTok, there's like what works is this kind of quirky little thing. There's a lot of comedy to it, and then like, well, I don't know if I'm that comedic, so I'm like, I don't know if it's gonna work. So what do you how do you like use it? Have you figured out like different platforms? It's like, oh, I'm gonna have to kind of adapt to what this platform does or what it is.
So with me, when I first joined TikTok, I was just the same. I was just there for watching other people's videos and not contributing because it just felt too scary and too complicated. But then I sort of just started posting. I do some lives on there sometimes when I'm just playing my songs acoustically or I'm doing some covers. And I think one of the cool things about TikTok is that it feels a lot more personal when you're interacting with people.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And
you feel
yeah,
like the feedback, you get a lot immediate feedback, like you're playing somewhere.
yeah, or like it feels more like you're talking to someone rather than being on a stage.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's probably like if when you're on something like this, it's like it's like a stage, more than that type of feel. I should
Yeah,
think I never thought about it that way. I maybe I don't think about it that way. You just gave me a new idea. um, but yeah, it's just interesting because now they get you like I just found out like Instagram now for some reason will let you do up to 60 minutes for
yeah.
some video, which I didn't know that. I tried it. Like somebody told me, hey, they're doing longer videos. So when I tried to max it out, I tried to put like a 2 hour thing on it. It said no. And then I said, well, okay, an hour and a half, no. And then I just said, was that a 60-minute one? It's like, oh, it took it. And then it let me do it. So I was like, oh, that's cool. So I was hoping that they would actually allow me to like put podcast episodes up, but it's not consistent. It's weird. It's like it only lets you do it like
Mm,
once in a while. It doesn't
that's
let you do it
strange.
like every day. Like you can't just keep on putting hour-long things out there. It's like there's like a limit. It will let you do like two, and then it'll say no more. So you guys are tired of me. You don't want me putting any more. But yeah, it's just interesting. Like all the different social media, they keep on having like new features,
Yeah,
and like Reels seems to be a competitor of like TikTok, trying to do the same thing with the Reel, um, which I've been trying to figure that one out too.
yeah. I haven't figured reels out yet.
Yeah, because I'm like, it's 30 seconds. What can I do in 30 seconds? It's like I'm trying to like, I'm kind of like a longer form person. I have a hard time with 30 seconds. But let me think of so you said the EP you don't have a target date for, but it's in the next month or two.
Yes.
That's cool. And it's gonna be out on like all the platforms that are normally that you put things on.
Yep. And I am also working on a few little videos for those as well.
Ooh, cool. So have you thought of taking something like that EP and putting out like a cassette or like a CD or vinyl just to test the waters? Have you looked into, or even thumb drives now? People put like USB sticks just so people have a physical version of your work.
Yeah, I thought about it, but because I can't really perform live anywhere, I
It's
don't
hard
know
to
how that
sell.
would work. Yeah,
Yeah, it's harder to kind of build a storefront,
yeah,
because that's the thing is like once you have something like that, then you got to have a store, then you got to have the overhead to justify the store, and we went into that because we now we got these T-shirts, but we went with a place that does it like on demand, so we don't have to have an inventory. So that's one
yeah,
thing we did is like okay, because it used to be like a couple years ago we did a T-shirt and we had to buy like 100 of them, and then they were just sitting in a box in the house. I'm like, well, that was a good decision. But now you can do like print on demand, and there's some places that would let you do like vinyl on demand and thumb drives on demand. So it's like then it becomes okay. Well, then somebody just buys it as they want it, and you don't
yeah,
have to have a big supply, which makes it easier to do. So then the fans that want to get it, and you don't have to have a big box of things sitting in the corner that you say, "Oh man, I should have never done that." But yeah, I just think it's like one thing I always get into, like the physical nature of music is, today so many things are virtual or on your phone or on your watch, but you don't have that physical connection that if
mm,
you pick up a vinyl or you pick up a CD, and sometimes some work it kind of really needs that because like once you start doing something that's got like a story, and then if you could have a lyric sheet, if you could have some artwork, I can see in your work that would be really cool. That to have
yeah,
like a physical version of it and like open up the liner notes and then see the lyrics and see the pictures. And in the videos, are giving you that. You're giving your fans another way to view your work. You're giving the visual aspect. But I think the connection to actually physically have art in your hands,
yeah,
I think is really cool. And it is kind of hard today if you can't show up at a venue and then sign it, because more people are willing to buy something if you show up at a venue, and then after at a merch table, you sign your stuff, and people are like, "Oh, I'll buy that because I got
Yeah.
it signed." So I guess it's harder to do that without knowing you could tour.
Yeah.
So what are your future plans beyond this project? Are you working on the next one?
Yes, I have a few ideas. So I have some songs that I've written after I've got this idea for this project that are not going to be in this EP, but so I'm trying to group them into something that makes sense as a whole. And I also have a few other ideas. There are a few new styles of music that I want to try out, and I'm hoping to just get to everything eventually. It's just so many ideas.
Well, so new styles, that's always interesting to me because I think we're living in an age like because you could collaborate with like a DJ and do like an EDM trance song. You could collaborate with a hip hop person and be a feature on their stuff. You could, be singing on a rock band's album, as a feature. So there's so many different ways to kind of get into things. I do a lot of sync licensing, like advertisements. I'll do like background music for ads and stuff like that, or 30-second little here it is because I'm a synthesis, so I can go and do some kind of background that would go into a commercial, and then it's like helps me buy another synth. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do. So have you ever thought of like collaborating, or are some of these things actually projects with other people?
So at the moment, they're all just my projects. I think collaborating could be fun, but I haven't really thought about it that much yet, I think.
I think it's kind of like you have to find the right artist
Yeah.
to work with. And today I think it is difficult because I've had a couple of things where like people came to me and they liked my sound, and then I started to work with them, and then I guess they didn't really understand me. Because I'm like, I am kind of adamantly kind of anti DAW. I kind of work in an old school punch in, punch out, like play everything kind of live. And so if somebody tries to get me to fit on a grid, it doesn't work that good. And so then it's really interesting when somebody comes to me and they're like, they like what I do. And it's kind of like, I don't use a DAW. I don't use the grid. So then if they like that, okay, like they come to me and then they want to force me to go into a DAW. And then I'm like, I don't work that way. So then it's like, okay, I guess you didn't understand what I do. And it's like, I guess it's not gonna work. But like I'll try it. It either works or it doesn't. So it's interesting, like, it's like you kind of have to feel it. Like I'd have worked with people where it really clicked. For some reason, it's like we just clicked and then everything we did just worked. It's like it is like, and that's when it's like magic. It's like when you're in a band. Like if you're ever in a band and you're like 3 or 4 people and you guys, the reason why you're a band is because the 3 or 4 people in that band, as soon as you start working, everything just works. And that's why that's why it becomes that. And I've had that happen a couple of times when I was younger, and that is really cool. And to have that experience, it doesn't happen every day. That when you work with other musicians, that you really click with them. But have you ever thought of actually being in a group, or you always just say, I'm a solo artist, I'm never going to be like in a group?
I'm not like completely opposed to the idea, but I think just the way I work, because I don't like showing the progress of my work while it's still in progress. So I don't like sharing work until I think it's completely done and completely perfect.
That's kind of hard if you're in a group.
Yeah.
That's kind of like that whole process becomes like a group thing. And if you're like not into that, that's why sometimes I think I went solo because I was in a group and I started going off in this direction and the rest of the guys didn't like it. And then I was like, well, I don't want to go back to what I was doing because I'm not there anymore. And so I think
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's like I can see I knew why I went and became just doing the ghost, just because I had some ideas that don't fit within like a group thing. And then sometimes I do have ideas that fit and I'll go work with somebody and then I'll bounce out of it because I'm like, oh, I'm done. And then I'll come back out. But yeah, it's just weird. It's like, my hero was like Neil Young. He was like famous for doing that because he was like in Buffalo, Springfield, he fit. And then he decided, I don't want to do that. And he dropped out. And then he went to Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and he fit. And then he's like, I'm tired of that, and he dropped out. And then he had a Crazy Horse, and he kind of keeps Crazy Horse, but he'll bounce out of Crazy Horse when he doesn't want to do it. So he's able to do like solo stuff, and then he's able to be in these big groups like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Buffalo, Springfield, and he can fit. But then he's like, if he gets tired of it, he just goes off and does what he wants. And I think that's kind of cool when you kind of know that you want to do that, and then you don't, and you just get out of it. And it's cool to watch him do that because then he sounds different, when he's in the different groups he's in. But so so maybe one day we'll see you in a group.
Maybe.
But yeah, I think it's like you got to know who you are. I think a lot of times today with being a singer songwriter, it is cool that you can kind of have your vision without having other people dictate what it should be. Because that's the whole reason why you do what you do, because you have a vision, right, for how you want to put your work out. That's your. So I mean, that is something that you've you strive for, right, in your work, is to have your authentic self coming out.
Yeah, I think like even if I'm not writing a song to be like a journal entry, because some of my songs feel more like journal entries, some are more storytelling. Even if I'm not doing that, there's still a part of me in that song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's hard because like in the industry, I think a lot of times people want you to create this kind of other person that is not exactly you, or it's trying to be like everybody that's in the top 10. Like in the popular music business, you've got to create this kind of vibe that all these producers are using the same things and the similar sounds and similar beats. And then you get into the indie world, you get people who are like authentic selves. You get this authentic voices, which is why I like to interview people in this space, because then you get to hear things that are kind of closer to like honest, like songwriting. It's kind of like what I grew up in the 70s. You had singer songwriters that just had this really deep feeling that like, okay, you feel like that person is really being honest with the audience about who they are, and whether or not that's really them, it felt like it was them, so I assumed it was them. But it just seems like that to me has always been very appealing versus kind of beat centered work. Not that's not cool, but I'm kind of more into the depth of like when you tell a story. And so what you like to do, I think a lot of songwriters are like short story or novelists. It's kind of like literature. I love when I get into a really good record, it's like reading a book, or it's like a sound painting. It's either a painting or it's a book, or it's like a mini film. So do you kind of see, when you write a song, do you see it in your head like a film or a short story or a journal entry? How do you see like your songs?
So with me, I actually have synesthesia, which means I see music as colors. So to me, every song has a color. Most chords have colors as well. And I try to keep that within, so the album artworks that I do, or like the video that I did for Cure for Loneliness, the way it was black and white, it was intentional because I felt like this was a very black and white, very devoid of color song. And I try to keep the visions of it within it somehow if I'm doing the videos.
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes within the lyrics, I use a lot of imagery or colors. And I did that with A Town Somewhere as well. So, yeah, I'm trying to keep it in there.
That's interesting because I've used synesthesia as a theme in a lot of my work. Actually, when I was in college, I wrote a collection of poetry called Synesthesia because I was like a young person and I found a word and I'm like, oh, I found this really cool word.
Yeah.
And like it represents like this collision of sight and sound. Like I smell the color and I feel the sound and I said, oh, I could use that, right? So then I was like I didn't have it, but I could kind of empathize with the idea of somebody that has synesthesia. And then I started to write like, okay, I'm going to create a character that has synesthesia. And I wrote this whole big collection like epic poems, like because I was inspired by like all this Victorian stuff. And it's been a common theme in my work. I use it a lot. I have a lot of songs that actually have that in the title. So that's interesting that you mentioned that because it's I think it's a really interesting term that not everybody knows what it is or understands what it means. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about it so our audience can understand it, like because you said you actually have it, so maybe you can talk about it.
Yeah, so the thing is, I didn't realize I had it for a long time because I just assumed everyone was like that. And then at some point I was talking to someone and they were like, no, not everyone is like that.
I think creative people are like that. I've talked to a lot of artists that maybe didn't realize that they actually are affected by it. Maybe different degrees, but I've talked to like painters that feel like they're affected by it, and actors that feel like they're affected by it, and musicians. So it seems like everybody I've ever talked to that talked about it was an artist in some way.
Yeah.
I never saw a banker or a lawyer ever talk about it. I've always been like a creative person because if I talk to a banker about it, they're like, what? But if I talk to like an artist, they're like, oh yeah, I understand what you're saying. So it's more of an understanding if you tend to be in the arts that you can kind of put your head around it. And then like, oh, I can see that. Oh, maybe actually I do have a degree of that. I mean, some people have it more than other people. Where they have like a full synesthesia, that's like all the time that they feel like that's happening. And I think it's interesting. Like when I met somebody that was like that, and they were doing a lot of work, a lot of art, and it seemed to be the synesthesia was like driving the work.
Yeah.
Because they were so affected by it that it caused them to not get depressed or be upset about it. They actually channeled it into like productive work, which is the cool thing because you wouldn't the other way. To make you feel like you're being afflicted by it, but you're actually using it for a good purpose. But
yeah, like I think with what you were saying, a lot of people who have it are in the arts in some way. I think part of it is that it inspires you to go into the arts because you see all these things, you have all these connections in your head, and you just want to share these.
Yeah, I think it's part of part of the DNA of being an artist to a certain degree. That more and more people who kind of open. I think as an artist, you have to open your head or your mind to the idea. Like I've always been really interested in the Victorian poets and the idea of the muse, right? So the idea of the muse is like I'm just going to be this vessel, and there's art that's out there in the universe, and if I open my eyes and open my ears and open my heart, I can actually tap into it if I'm not like narrow minded. So if I'm sitting here and I'm saying like, oh, I have no ideas, I can't write, I can't do any of that, I have nothing, right? But if you actually say, wait a minute, I'm going to open my eyes, I'm going to hear, I'm going to listen, then suddenly you start to tap into it. And then you take like your artistic ability and channel it. And I think that's like an artist is able to be able to turn that on or maybe not turn it off and use it. Where other person is like, well, I don't have any ideas. I have to copy somebody. And I think like people who write original content are able to kind of tap into this universal like ecosystem of all this stuff that's out there, and then you put your spin on it
Yeah.
because you're an artist. And I think everything that we do is something's been done before, but it's how you interpret it. Then it
Yeah.
becomes like you, and then you put your stamp on it.
Yeah, definitely. Like, so I studied English at uni, and one of the things that I was really interested in was the death of the author and how different people can read the same text and have different reactions. And I think it's a very similar thing when you're writing as well, because I read somewhere that there's no original stories. Everything has been done before, but it hasn't been done by you. So everyone does it in their own way, even if the idea itself was the same. Everyone will put their own spin on it, which I think is what's so cool about art.
Yeah, I think that's great because one of the things is like the blues. Like if you think about the blues, right? There's a certain structure to like Delta blues, and you got like the big icons in it. You got like Lead Belly and Robert Johnson and all these great blues guys from the Delta, Mississippi area in the U.S. And when you get into the blues, it's like there's a certain form, and that's what it is. And it's kind of like your interpretation of that form because it's been done by these great artists, right? And there's only so many ways you're going to talk about the crossroads because it's been done over and over and over again.
Yeah.
but like how you interpret it becomes like Stevie Ray Vaughan's version of it, Jimi Hendrix's version of it, Lead Belly's version of it, and each person who does it ends up putting a different spin on it. So it's
Yeah.
not like a sample. It's kind of like that people say like you feel you live the blues. It is like embodied in you as a musician, like a guitar player that's into the blues. It's kind of like in their DNA, and everything they do is kind of blues. It's like they're like a method actor, and they live it like 24/7, and it just kind of comes out of them, and it's just that's what it is. Um, and it seems like in art there's like different degrees of that, and then you have artists that like like blues is kind of like a very narrow form, like you don't really merge it with other things. But like in other types of music, like alternative, indie, experimental, you could take multiple genres and mix them,
Yeah.
and you're not just straight blues. You're actually taking pieces of other things and then putting them together. And I think it's cool when you can actually you know take a little bit of everything you hear, and then you're like, wow, I just took some stuff from the Beatles and then stuff from the Yes and then stuff from Pink Floyd and then something from Kurt Cobain, and then I made something new. you know
Yeah. It's like a collage in your mind of all the things that you like about all these different little things, and then they just make up you.
yeah, that's what I think. It's interesting once you have like certain music, when you start to have more layers to it, when you start to introduce multi-tracking and you start putting in like keyboards and strings and orchestral instruments, then you have the ability to bring in other colors.
Yeah.
Then if you stay true to a form, like in EDM, it's like, are you going to have the drop? You're going to have the structure. You're going to have the beat. It's going to be like boom, trance, trap. There's certain things, forms, like you're kind of stuck in the form. And you could throw some like cool thing. You could take like some like Arabic melody and throw it in, and that might be different. Or you could take like some like Central American theme and throw it in, or so you could take something, you could take a Native American chant and put it in, and so then that becomes a little bit different because then it's like, okay, I took this form, but then I grabbed something esoteric that nobody else did, and then suddenly I made it my own. Um, and that's why I always kind of as a producer, I like to challenge people. It's like, why don't you take something you don't think fits and try to make it fit?
Yeah.
Take something you like and you never really thought about it, and like take that and put that into the song, and like, oh, what do you mean? Like, we'll go and just take a field recording of somebody saying something that and then throw that in, and then that makes it different. It makes it you. You know, you like that. You like that. What that sounds like. You put it in. You change it instead of just trying to clone everything that's already been done. You take some things that are cloned and then you so people can be familiar. I think that's
Yeah.
the key in music. Like you have some things that are familiar, so people can understand the beat or they understand the melody, and then you try to throw some unfamiliar things in to make it more unique.
Yeah. Like when I was redoing Cure for Loneliness, one thing that I actually changed is in the beginning, where it starts with the sound of rain and the sound of streets. And I didn't even think about it when I was first writing it, but it was, of course, in my mind because this was a song that, at the end of the day, reminds me of rain. And so what I did was I actually wanted to give that exact same feeling that I had when I'm hearing the song, when I'm writing the song, and put it literally into the song through the use of the soundscape.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that's really cool because I mean, Pink Floyd was one of my favorite bands. Is they used to do field recordings all the time
Yeah.
to the extent where they would go and actually get actors or find people to actually have conversations and give them scripts of what they want those conversations to be and record them and then insert them into the song. And then they would actually even go out and do field recordings out in the woods and on the street and the subway and just like, take the sound, the people dropping change and people doing breaking something. It just adds to the kind of this kind of progressive rock nature, or what people used to call art rock. But I think like all music can have that. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
progressive. You can take that, you can put that into a hip hop song, you could put it into an EDM song, you can put it into a country song. It's not totally tied to a genre. It's just a matter of like, as a producer writer, you decide that you want to have more color
Yeah.
in your mix. You want to add things to it, and I think it's just your choices that you make, and you have so many choices as an artist that you can go back to your recordings. Like you went back into something and it's like, oh, I can look at this a little different. I
Yeah.
can I can add some different variations in here and add my palette, add to my what I'm gonna do. And I think it's always good. I think as an artist to step away from your work and then come back to it, and then maybe have a different ear on it.
Mm.
Especially when you're like, if you're like a person that like that is your work is kind of really good. Like I'm a programmer, and a lot of times when I'm coding, they tell us like you do it for like 10 hours straight, and then you say stop, and then I don't look at it for like 2 days.
Yeah.
Then I go back and I look at it, and it's like, oh, now I see something I didn't see. And the same things like with your music or art. You could do a painting and then you step away because you like when you're in it, you're so in it that you can't see anything but what
Yeah,
you've been
exactly.
focused on, and then you got to walk away from it to kind of have that second set of eyes, which is actually your own. Especially
Yeah.
when you're like your own producer, it's kind of like necessary to step away so you can actually have a better gauge of what you did.
Yeah. Like you talked about programming, and to me, so when I was at uni and we were writing essays, one of the things that we would have to do would be set down the essay for a bit, come back later, and then read it over, because sometimes you will think you explained something because in that moment it made sense to you, but in reality it didn't. And I think that's a similar way actually with music and art as well, because in that moment, yes, it all makes sense to you because you're in it, but then when you actually step away from it and then come back to it, you realize that actually no, it wasn't that obvious what you just did, and maybe you should add something or change something.
Yeah, I think that's when especially when if you're not using a producer, then it's like necessary to be kind of self-critical and give yourself like this methodology,
Yeah.
and it's a method to actually make your eyes a second set of eyes by stepping away from it and giving yourself. And so when you come back, it's almost like you're another person, because like when you're in the moment, it's like typical anything. You get so caught up into it. And I can say, like, as a keyboardist, if I get caught up in an arrangement, and I'm like so concentrating on my left and right hand and concentrating on what I want it to be, that I really can't really hear what I'm doing, other than like I'm so concentrated on trying to create it
Yeah.
that I got to walk away from it, and then come back and say, well, should I use the minor seventh here or diminished? Should I go back and change? But when I'm in the middle of it, I'm like, well, that's what I'm doing. When I come back to it, I'm like, oh, I could change this. I don't have to do it that way. I could do it this way. And it's kind of like a producer, I think, does that in real time. So like if you're in a studio and you're doing that, they'll do it like right there. They're like, it's like, okay, I'm doing it. Hey, why don't you run that in D? Like, why don't you take that into a diminished? Why don't you do this as a fifth? Why don't you do that? And they're the ones who kind of suddenly say, they pop the idea in your head and they try to get it in your head while you're doing it. And some people either like that or they don't like it, or like, no. So there's some people that kind of need a producer. I've actually been with artists that, like, if they don't have that person pushing them, then the work only gets so far. That there's certain artists that kind of need another person to kind of push that to get the best work out of them. And it's interesting, like, but when you're kind of like self-driven and self-motivated, you tend to just, I think people like ourselves, like we're singer-songwriters and we write our own stuff, and we seem to be motivated enough that we're just going to do it. But other people, that's the difference between an artist that takes like 2 years to put out an album, and an artist that puts out albums like every 3-4 months. So what's the motivation? Like, I can't sit around for a year and not put something out. That's just not me. But unless I'm really trying to put something together, I think it's special or something. I end up working on something else. So even if I'm working on a project that's this big long project, in between I might do singles.
Yeah, I do that too.
Or I might deviate and think, oh, this is a totally different record. And then I'll start working on this, and it's like, well, this doesn't fit with this one, but this is something cool. So then I end up having like 4 different things I'm bouncing around. Say, well, I'll work on this one, and then I'll work on that one, then I'll go this one. I'm bouncing around. It's like, which one am I working on now? I don't know. So I think it's really interesting to see where your work has come from the last time we talked. Yeah. And I really like the video you did. I think the video
thank you
is really cool. And so I'm looking forward, because you just mentioned that you're going to have like videos for like every song on this EP.
Yeah.
And they're all going to be like videos that you create, right?
Yeah, so I'm thinking not necessarily full music videos, but more like this one or A Town Somewhere, where there are more a collage of images and colors and just stuff that remind me of this song, essentially.
Yeah. Well, I think that's I love music videos that aren't just like performance videos. Because like, like when MTV started, like the initial video was like, okay, it's just a band playing. And then like directors started coming in, like film directors started coming in, like art school people. And then the videos became, oh, you can actually do more than that. You can actually, it doesn't just have to be the band playing. You can actually have a story. You could have something that's really esoteric. You could have something that's psychedelic. You could have something that's kind of stream of consciousness. You could do all these other things that you can do in film, you can do with music video. Yeah. And I think it's when MTV stopped playing videos, I got really sad, because I really liked when it first started. There was so much cool stuff coming out, and then it got turned into all these like shows. And I was like, what's that got to do with music? But at least like on YouTube now, you still have a lot of bands creating cool video. In the different forms that are out there, other than YouTube, there's still a lot of cool places for bands to try something new and I do appreciate the work you're doing because it's cool.
Oh,
Um,
thanks.
and I think more people need to visually think in you know be out of the box. Anything that's cool that you think like fits your vision, and everybody's vision is different. So it's like you don't feel like you shouldn't do it because it's like your vision. I think everybody should put out their own vision so then people can really feel what's inside of your artistic mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to essentially do that with the videos because, like I said, I see the music as these shapes or these colors, and I want to really show that through the
Mhm.
videos.
I think that like it's really cool when an artist can do as much work themselves. Like so you're writing the songs, you're producing the songs, you're making the video, you're doing the art. Then what happens when people see your project? It's your art project. It's more than just the song. It's like the whole concept. And
Yeah,
then you get to see the complete picture of the artist, And I think that's really cool. And that's why we're extending our invitation that if you want to perform this work once you're ready to perform it, we'd love you to come on and do an actual performance of it however you want. If you want to be able to do the full breadth of what you're doing visually with like a green screen, we do have the ability to do green screens on this thing. So there's a lot of stuff you could do potentially if you wanted to visually do something.
yeah. I should definitely think about that. That sounds cool.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. This tool actually can do a green screen. We did it initially, but then we had some processing power problems. But
Mm.
yeah, you have the ability to run it as a guest or as the host, and so there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with that. And we're actually looking into it for some stuff we're gonna do. Uh, but yeah, we encourage anybody that wants to get into that we are getting into the hosting of performances, and we'd like to have you do a performance. So just let us know when you want to do that, and when you want to come back and push the full project when it's out.
Yeah, of course.
Well, thank you very much for being on the program. Everybody, see the link tree below. Make sure that you click on the link tree, and not only do you stream her work, but you favorite it, playlist it, like it, download it, buy it.
Thank you.
That I say that I really mean it. So like I feel that a lot of people as fans, are cursory fans, and I really uh, want to encourage fans to go the extra mile and actually hit the like button, hit the favorite button, hit the download button. It takes like 5 seconds to do it, and that is very helpful to artists. It helps us out a lot if we get the engagement of our fans. So thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Yeah, we'll hope to talk to you again. Have a great day. What time is it where you are?
It is 6 p.m.
Oh, it's around lunchtime for me. So like time to go get a hamburger or something, or a veggie burger. Maybe that's better for the environment. So I'll get a veggie burger. Okay. Talk to you guys. Talk to you later. I'm very happy that you came on the show again. We will be pushing this onto our audio. We still do audio. We're still part of Anchor FM. So this will get turned into a Spotify and Apple podcast, as well as 9 other audio podcasts. And so we will get those going within the next hour.
Awesome.
Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.